Ilan. It is, Cantor, it's now 6:13, which seems like a fabulous time to start our Seder.
What a fantastic time.
So biblical and everything.
I'm just, yeah. If one of our co-hosts has gotten the email that tells us where we are on YouTube, if one of our co-hosts has gotten the email that tells us where we are on YouTube, will you please copy the link and send it to the waiting room and let them know that they can watch on YouTube if they can't get into the Zoom room? Yes.
Okay. Gail's screen's.
I'll take care of it.
Now that's what she needs. She needs it. She's done it. So why do you not want it? Yeah, but the first one, this is definitely the first one.
Thank you. I'm just letting you know because Cassie's starting.
Are we ready?
As ready as we're going to be.
Okay. I am so happy that everyone has joined us here tonight. And even though we can't be here in person, and even though this truly is a Seder unlike all others, we have well over 100 people, if we count multiple people in several homes, who are here together online to celebrate Passover. And it is so lovely to be able to do that, each and every one of you. As we know, the word Seder, which we're about to take part in, means order. And I know these days that we've been having over the past few weeks might feel like they do not have a typical order. And yet here we come together to reestablish some order that, even though our world is so different than we would have imagined it would be, all of us can come together and celebrate one of these most sacred of holidays that we have. And so we begin by singing the Seder, the order of tonight's service.
Kadesh urchatz karbas yachatz magid rachza motzi matza maror korech shulchan orech zafun barech halel nirtzah.
Can you see me, Ani?
We are, first of all, a huge thank you to so many people who contributed to the Seder, including several of our members of our community, Shelley Pogrelski, Milan Tallinger, and Sandy Sherman, who gave poems that we'll be able to include tonight, as well as people who submitted pictures and everything else. And we begin with this beautiful poem by Rabbi Naomi Levy. On this sacred night, divided in space, united in voice, as we start our Seder, we cry out to you, God, from our place of confinement and warning. Hear our Passover prayer. Let it pass over, God. Let this plague pass over us. Let it pass over every nation, every people, the young and the old. Let it pass over every city and every village all across your world. Let it pass over, heal those stricken in every hospital bed, in every home. Let this night of liberation mark the birth of great healing. Give all souls the wisdom and the strength to sacrifice their freedom of movement for the sake of life. Send healing to all who are ill. Fill doctors and nurses and all those in the front lines of this battle with the full force of their sacred healing powers. Watch over them, God. Enlighten scientists all across the world with insights and discoveries that will lead to effective treatments and someday soon a cure. Free us, God, from this plague. Shelter us with your comforting presence on this Passover night. We pray to you, God. Let it pass over us. Hear us, God. Heal us, God. Amen. As the sun is slowly making its descent in the sky, we're not quite at sundown, but we're getting there. We bring some light into the darkness in our world. We welcome the festival of Pesach as darkness descends As we kindle these lights, we remember that our ancestors discovered freedom in the middle of a dark night in Egypt. Let the candles we light reflect the light that shines within each of us, and let that light radiate throughout our homes. We pray the force of light that keeps alive the hope of freedom amid the dark. And I invite everyone at home to join in as we light our candles.
Rabbi, I believe that your screen froze on the Let It Pass Over poem.
No.
Hold on.
We heard it.
Okay, hold on one second.
So sorry, Rabbi.
Do you
There we
see
are.
it now?
Absolutely, it's perfect. Oh, you went one too far. There you go. So you want to light the candles? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של יום טוב. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
This Shakyanu blessing, I think, is particularly fitting tonight, as we thank God for the ability for all of us to be here, to be strong, and to be able to gather through this amazing technology that we have, so that all of us, we don't have to celebrate Passover alone in our homes. We can truly be here together. There's a few symbols that we have, and some of them might be symbols that you have on your tables, and some of them might not be. One of the symbols that we include is Miriam's cup, which we will fill with water. This is the cup of Miriam. The cup, yes, you made it, Talia, that is right. This is the cup of living waters, a reminder of strength, a reminder of sacred resistance, a reminder of the Exodus. And the reason that we fill it with water is because Miriam, as we know, had a pivotal role all throughout the story of the Exodus. Yes, this is very, very heavy. All throughout the story of the Exodus, where not only did she put her brother in the water, put Moses in the water so that he would be saved, but it's also said that Miriam led the Israelites in song after they walked through the parted waters, and that throughout their wandering in the desert, where there's not a whole lot of water yet always easily accessible, Miriam had a way of always making sure that the people had their thirst quenched with water. So have this cup in honor of her.
Zot kos Miriam, kos mayim chayim, zechel tziat Mitzrayim, zechel tziat Mitzrayim.
In addition to Miriam's cup, of course, we cannot forget Elijah's cup. And there's lots of traditions around this. We might, in our homes, fill Elijah's cup just with wine or grape juice that we have available. But there is one tradition from the Hasidic Rebbe Naftali Tzvi Horowitz, who used to go around the Seder inviting each participant to pour from their personal cup into Elijah's cup, which symbolizes the Kabbalistic concept that divine action will occur when there's a corresponding human action, an awakening from below that precedes it. So tonight, everyone is invited to fill their tables Elijah's cup of future redemption while silently or aloud making a particular wish for a better year. May it come true with our own initiative and then with God's help. If you have a wish for this future year, I invite you to put it in the chat so that we can collect all of those wishes and be inspired. A little bit. Put a little bit of your grape juice in there, right? And we'll give this to Elijah.
Because we can eat that.
But of course, we are also looking forward to drinking from our first cup of wine, of which we will have 4. Grape juice, wine, any fruit of the vine is totally fine. But I invite everyone to lift up their glasses and pour it so that we can take part in this blessing. I'll give you a minute. I know a few of us are going to just get our glasses all ready.
Doesn't matter. I just need to have something to bless. Thank you. Perfect.
And of course, the blessing over wine is called the Kiddush, which comes from the same root as the word kadosh, meaning holiness. When we say this blessing over the wine, we invite extra holiness into our homes.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher בחר בנו מכל העם ורוממנו מכל לשון וקידשנו במצוותיו ותיתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה מועדים לשמחה חגים וזמנים לששון את יום חג המצות הזה זמן חירותנו מקרא קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים ומועדי קודשך בשמחה ובששון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש ישראל והזמנים. לחיים.
Chaim. So this might be very familiar to a lot of us these days of washing our hands a whole lot. And there are 2 opportunities inside of our Seder to do a hand washing. One traditionally is only done by the service leader, although by all means, if you would like to wash your hands before we have the pleasure of having some karpas or parsley, I invite you to do so. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of water over my hands. And then dry them with a special towel. That's exactly right. Very important that we clean ourselves often, so that we stay healthy and safe. And now that we've done that, we come to the very first item of our Seder that we are able to eat, which is karpas, our trusty parsley. So as we know, karpas represents the new growth, the rebirth, the beginning of new life. There's a reason that it happens in the springtime, Passover. We dip it in salt water to recall the tears of our ancestors that they shed during slavery. So we mix the bitterness with sweetness, slavery with freedom, past with future, and hope.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Bore Pri Ha'adama.
Parsley in. That is very salty. Okay. My husband is playing tricks on me.
I'm gonna put like the entire thing, and I love parsley. So much.
We are going to continue, and this actually, this is a story that I think about every Passover, because it's a story about a man who
That's sour.
came from a place of poverty. It's an Iraqi Jewish story that they tell the tale of a country in which the king was always chosen in a special way with this bird that would land after the king had died. A big bird would come out, and whoever this bird landed on would become the next ruler. And so once the bird of good fortune landed on the head of a slave, that slave had been a simple musician who entered the master's parties. His costume consisted of a feathered cap and a belt made with the hooves of sheep. When the slave became king, he moved into the palace and wore royal robes. However, he ordered that a shack, a kind of sukkah, be constructed next to the palace, and that his old hat and belt and drum be stored there along with a giant mirror. The new king was known for his kindness and his love for all people, rich and poor, free and slave. Often he would disappear into his little shack. Once he left its door open, and the cabinet ministers saw him don his feathered hat, put on his old belt, and dance and drum before the mirror. They found it very strange, and they asked him, "After all, you are king. You must maintain your dignity." The king replied, "Once I was a slave, and now I've become king. From time to time, I want to remind myself that I was once a slave, yet lest I grow arrogant and treat with disdain my people and you, my ministers." And today, as we are about to relive our Passover story, we remember that we too were once slaves, and our freedom is not something to be taken lightly. One of the most important symbols in our Seder, of course, is this flat bread that we will have an opportunity to eat many, many times over the next week. And we say, halachma anya, this is the bread of poverty and persecution that our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. As it says in the Torah, 7 days shall you eat matzot, the bread of poverty and persecution, so that you will remember that you were a slave in Egypt.
Halachma anya, halachma anya, halachma anya, the bread that we ate in Mitzrayim. All those who are hungry, let them come and eat. All those who are hungry, let them come and eat. All those who are hungry, let them come and eat. Halachma anya, halachma anya, halachma anya. The bread that we ate in Mitzrayim. All who are in need, let them come and celebrate. All who are in need, let them come and celebrate. All who are in need, let them come and celebrate. Halachma anya. Next year may we all be free. Next year may we all be free. Next year may we all be healthy and free. Halachma
This poem by Marge Percy speaks again about the importance of matzah. Flat you are as a doormat and as homely. No crust, no glaze, you lack a cosmetic glow. You break with a snap. You are dry as a twig split from an oak in midwinter. You are bumpy as mud basin in a drought. Square as a slab of pavement, you have no inside to hide raisins or seeds. You are as pale as the full moon, pocketed with craters. What we see is what we get. Honest, plain, dry, shining with nostalgia, as if baked with light instead of heat. The bread of flight and haste. In the mouth, you promise hope. So, one of the most important parts, certainly for any children who are on here right now, is this very moment where we take a piece of matzah and we break it in two. And the reason this is important, of course, is because that there's something called the afikomen.
Wait, I totally
And
forgot
so,
about
oh
that.
yeah.
Who's gonna be?
So what I am doing is I am taking this bigger piece of matzah. Hold on, sweetie. I am taking this bigger piece of matzah and I'm going to wrap it up in this napkin right here. And I am going to be inviting my friend Elijah to, when he comes in, to have some wine a little bit later, to take this afikomen right here and deliver it into the mailbox of someone in our congregation. So later in the service, when it's time to find that afikomen in order to finish our meal, I want you to look in your mailboxes, kids, to see if Elijah brought it to your house. But for now, I'm just going to put it right here and we'll wait for Elijah and we'll see what happens. This whole idea of breaking the matzah is really, really important for lots of reasons. I know there's tons of excitement about this.
The one bad
Okay.
thing is the most-
Talia thinks she hears Elijah coming already. Maybe he is. Well, we'll have to check it out. We'll have to
Wait, I
see.
always go to the street.
So there's a lot of power in the breaking of the matzah. Yachatz means together, right? So what we do is we break up this matzah, anticipating the day in which we will be able to bring it back together. When we find the other half, we can put the two halves together and again, we have a whole. And so this can also be a symbol for us in our community. Right now, we are separate, we are apart in a lot of different homes, but we look forward with anticipation and great hope for the time that we will all be together and fit together once more. But first, we turn to the 4 questions, and there happen to be a few kids in our congregation who have worked really hard to show you this.
And now we have some of our youngest members of the temple leading us in Ma Nishtana.
Manishtana halayla hasa iko halaylo iko halaylo.
Sorry, we're going to watch that from the beginning again.
Leading us in Ma Nishtana.
Manishtana halayla hasa iko halaylo
Yeah, mommy.
iko halaylo.
I've lost my case.
Behold, hallelujah, Aniwakin, She'ayirako, She'ayirako, Halayla Sebehol Hallelujah and Anu Mekani. Afilu Be'amechad. Afilu Be'amechad. Halayla Hazeh. Halayla Hazeh. Chitei Be'ami. Halayla Hazeh. Halayla Hazeh. Chitei Be'ami. Sebehol Hallelujah. Anochim v'nosbihu v'nesubin v'nosbihu v'nesubin halayla hazeh halayla hazeh eshuranu mesubin halayla hazeh eshuranu mesubin.
Thank you so much for everyone who worked so hard to do that. And of course, these are our 4 questions. How is this night different from all other nights? Now, when we ask that question, it seems pretty obvious tonight how this night and this Seder is different from all other Seders, but it's an important question to ask nonetheless. And so we turn to our answers to these questions. Okay, so on all other nights, we eat either leavened bread or matzah, but on this night, we eat only matzah. On all other nights, we eat other kinds of vegetables. On this night, we eat maror. And on all other nights, we need not dip our vegetables even once, but tonight we dip twice. And on all other nights, we eat sitting up or reclining, but on this night, we recline. So there are a few more questions here, right, which relate to it. Why do we eat this plain matzah, which, as we all know, is not the easiest to digest in the world? And so part of the reason is the story that we're going to come to in just a few minutes of the Exodus. When they were leaving Egypt, they weren't able to wait for the bread to rise. And so it doesn't have air in it. Instead, we have this really, really dense matzah that we all get to enjoy over the next several weeks. Or days, not weeks, goodness gracious. Poor laborers and slaves are fed matzah not only because it's cheap, but because it's filling and requires a long digestion period. The diet was designed by the oppressor to exploit the people of the shepherds. Why eat raw, bitter vegetables? Well, maror is eaten plain by only the most oppressed workers who are given little time to prepare their meals. With more time, they would have made these herbs into a tasty salad. Why dip twice before eating? The Seder night, we are obligated to dip twice, karpas in salt water and maror in charoset before the meal begins. Even today, finger foods dipped in tangy sauces are typical hors d'oeuvres with cocktails at banquets. And why recline on pillows while drinking wine? Well, the body language of the free reflects the ease and comfort. Reclining on sofas or pillows, everyone big and small alike experiences the freedom of upper classes. On Seder nights, these foods and these table manners are props in the stage direction and the script acted out by all. In addition to the 4 questions, we come to the 4 children, not the 4 sons, but the 4 children. And there's a few different kind of texts relating to each one of them. So the first one, as we know, is the wise child, who says, what are these testimonies and statutes and laws which God has commanded you? You must tell this child some of the laws of Pesach. We do not proceed to any dessert after eating the Pesach lamb. So basically, his question is very similar to the question of the wicked child. The wicked child, or the rebellious child, says, what does the service mean to you? Emphasizing the you, that this is something that relates to you, but not necessarily to himself. And since the child excludes himself from the community and rejects a major principle of faith, you should set that child's teeth on edge and says, it is because of this that Adonai did for me when I went free from Egypt. Me and not the child. Had he been there, he would not have been redeemed. To me, this seems a little bit on the harsh side. But essentially, it's just supposed to talk about the importance of all being together as community, right? That every single one of us, whether we are Jewish or we are Jew adjacent, We are all part of the community together, and no one is excluded. All of us were slaves when we once came out of Egypt, and now we are free and we're able to celebrate that liberation. We are going to go forward a little bit more to see two of the other children. What does the simple child ask? What is this? And you should say to that child, by a mighty hand, Adonai brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And for the child who does not know how to ask, you should prompt the child, as it is said, you shall tell your child, it is because of this that the Adonai did for me when I went free from Egypt. And essentially, as Rabbi Israel Slanter teaches, and as this picture here I can't read my own screen, it's too small, but this artwork shows we really have all four of these children inside of us. Every one of us has moments of rebellion, moments of wisdom, moments of not just wanting to understand the basics, and moments where we don't even know what to ask. And the more we can understand how diverse we are and that we all have pieces of that in us, perhaps the more inclusive and open and welcoming we can be. One of the most important teachings of the Seder is this one line. In every generation, one is obligated to see oneself as one who personally is out of Egypt.
בכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו יצא ממצרים. בכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו יצא ממצרים.
Sandy Sherman wrote this beautiful prayer. The prayer is actually a little longer than this. I just took out a short snippet from it. Oh Lord, we have gathered at this Seder table, not only to recount the journey of the Jewish people to freedom, but to participate in such a way that the words of the Haggadah will transcend and inspire us to take our own personal journey. We know we have a responsibility to see ourselves as slaves. We read, we were slaves. Let it teach us empathy and compassion so that we can know the heart of the stranger, so that the struggle of all those who strive for freedom be our struggle too, so that the problem of all who are downtrodden lead us to acts of kindness to Kun Olam, repairing the world. We know we have a responsibility to ask ourselves, how are we enslaved? Help us to find the answers to our questions. Are we prisoners of habits, prejudices, and lifestyles? What choices can we make in our lives to become free? Where are the bitter herbs in our lives, and how can we sweeten them? How can we take our weaknesses and turn them into strengths? How can we redeem ourselves? Our story in Egypt begins with us as slaves working, and we sing the words, Avadim Hayinu, we were slaves in Egypt, and now we are free.
עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין, עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין, עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין, אתה בני חורים, בני חורים. והיא שעמדה לאבותינו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו. הקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מהאדם. הקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מהאדם. והיא שעמדה לאבותינו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו.
The words of this last prayer that we said remind us that in every generation, or in many generations, there have been enemies who have stood to bring hatred into the world, to hurt us as a minority culture. And as you might know, just yesterday, I believe it was, though days seem so long that who knows, but just yesterday, there was an event that we were doing through Zoom, through our temple, where there were a few people who got into our Zoom call and started sharing white supremacist ideas on it. And the reason that we're being so tight with security and letting people in tonight is that we want to make sure this is a safe place for all of us to be able to celebrate Passover together. But I'd be remiss if I didn't give a thank you to Sarah Dean and other people who are here from South Coast Interfaith Council who specifically want to be with us tonight to show what it means to stand together, to celebrate Passover together. Yes, there are people in the world who try to bring hatred and who try to lead from a place of negativity, but there are so many more. And us, we feel that as well, that there are so many more who come from a place of compassion and love. And we are so blessed for our connection with the interfaith community that leads in that way. We dive further into our story of the Exodus. And I'm not going to read this whole version, but it begins, as we know, in one small corner of Egypt. And this is just where the great river Nile turns into the sea with people who are the Israelites. That there had been a Pharaoh who had known Joseph, who had had respect for Joseph, and then one day he died. And a new Pharaoh arose who did not know the Israelite people. And when he did not know the Israelite people, he thought, okay, I don't know them. They're a big group of people. Clearly they are a threat. And I need to do everything that I can in order to get rid of that threat. So he thought of a plan. We'll make them our slaves, he announced with an evil grin. We'll work them so hard they won't even have time to think of fighting us. With a bit of luck, they may even die of exhaustion. So the Jewish people slaved from sunrise to sunset, making bricks and moving huge stones to build Egyptian cities and palaces. And when they were not building cities, they had to dig fields and plant all the wheat and barley. The Jewish people were exhausted, just as Pharaoh had hoped, but they didn't die. In fact, they didn't even get ill. They stayed strong and healthy as ever, and Pharaoh's wicked plan wasn't working. So he had another idea. He told the nurses, the midwives, that they should kill all the Israelite baby boys as soon as they were born. But the nurses knew that God wouldn't approve of such a thing. After all, the most important thing in Judaism is preserving life. So they made an excuse. We're so sorry, Your Majesty, they lied, not daring to look Pharaoh in the eye, but the babies are born so quickly that we never get there in time. All right then, replied Pharaoh angrily. They'll just have to be thrown into the river instead. All the Jewish mothers were terrified and tried to hide their babies. One mother hid her newborn boy in the corner of her house, and if anyone heard him crying and wondered about the noise, she knew what to say. It's a sick sheep I'm looking after, she would tell them. Funny, isn't it, how they sound just like babies when they're ill? No one suspected anything. But soon the baby grew too big to hide. I know what to do, thought his mother. I'll make an ark of reeds and float the baby on the river near where the Pharaoh's daughter comes to wash every morning, and she's sure to find him. She has no children of her own, and she's not nearly as cruel as that wicked king. Perhaps she'll feel sorry for my baby and save him. So the mother took a basket and painted the outside with black sticky stuff called pitch and stopped the water from getting in. And when she laid the baby inside and put the basket among the reeds near the riverbank, she told her mother Miriam, she told her mother, the sister Miriam, to stay and see what happened. And sure enough, the princess came down to the water's edge and stopped the basket. She sent one of her servants to fetch it, and she was amazed to see her little baby tucked snugly inside. "Whatever are you doing here?" she exclaimed, picking him up and giving him a cuddle. And then she guessed the truth. "You must be one of those Jewish babies, and your mother has hidden you here for safety. Well, I don't care what my father says. I won't throw you in the river." This princess is named Batya. And actually, if you look at this top corner over here, because it's thought that she had infertility, and so she wasn't able to have a baby of her own, so she adopted baby Moses. And for that reason, they're in Israel, or there actually is an American Association of Adoptive Parents with Infertility Problems called Batya in her honor. But the story continues a bit more, because when Moses comes of age, this little boy gets older and his mother takes him back to the princess. "From now on, I shall be his mother," the princess said, "and I'll call him Moses because I took him from the water." So Moses was brought up like an Egyptian prince and had everything that he could wish for. But as the years went by, one thing began to bother Moses more and more. Although he lived with the Egyptians, he knew he wasn't one of them. He knew he really was a Jew. And he saw how cruel the Egyptians were to the people, and it made him very angry. How could the Egyptians treat them so badly? They hadn't done anything wrong. It just wasn't fair. So one day when Moses had grown up, he decided to visit one of the building sites to see for himself what was going on. He caught sight of one of the Egyptian slave drivers beating the Hebrew slave. Moses completely lost his temper. He picked up a stone and smashed it on a slave driver's head, and the man fell to the ground dead. Moses was horrified at what he had done. Quickly, he buried the body in the sand. "Don't breathe a word of what happened. The Pharaoh will have me killed," he warned the slave. But the man just couldn't help telling his brother, and his brother told his aunt, and his aunt told his friend, and soon everyone knew. And the next day, Moses visited another building site and saw a big, strong slave bullying a small, weak slave. "Stop that, you great bully," shouted Moses. "Just you try to make me," the slave answered back cheekily. "You can't boss me about, or I'll tell the Pharaoh how you killed one of his men." Moses was terrified. His secret was out, and he knew that when Pharaoh heard, that would be the end of him. So that night, he packed a few clothes and some food. With a last longing look at home, he crept away. Shiphrah and Puah, who are the maidservants who stood up to the Pharaoh, as well as Batya, as well as Miriam, are all heroes in this story. And Moses soon will be one too. So I want you to think for a second about who are the champions of Tikkun Olam, of healing in the world, who inspire you most. And I invite you to write their names in the chat if you're able to do that. Who is yours, Talia? Grandma? That's very nice.
Block. When can I do the...
And as we continue to do that, we come to three of the most important symbols, and we've already talked a little bit about one of them. We have to, according to Rabbi Gamliel, it's important to talk a bit about Pesach, our shank bone, about matzah, and about maror, horseradish, which might not be in a hard form for some of you, but it's one of the many forms that we have in my house. So the Pesach lamb is based on the verses from the Torah. When your children ask you, what do you mean by this ceremony? You shall say it is the Passover offering to Adonai, because God passed over the houses in Israel, in Egypt, of Israel in Egypt, when God struck the Egyptians, but saved our houses. And the matzah, they baked unleavened cake of the dough that they had taken out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, since they had been driven out of Egypt and cannot delay, nor had they prepared any provisions for themselves. And finally, maror, they embittered their lives with hard labor, with mortar and bricks, and with all sorts of field labor. Whatever the task, they worked them ruthlessly. So these are symbols that remind them of it. But there's a couple of other symbols on our plate as well, such as choroset. Choroset, which I'm dropping on my table, that's good. Choroset is often equated with the clay the Hebrews used to make bricks in Egypt, but Rabbi Levy teaches that choroset we actually have in memory of the apple tree. And those of you in our Torah class on Thursday have heard a little bit about this already, as well as those in the Beit Midrash class. Pharaoh, wishing to stop the Hebrews from procreating, ordered a separation of husbands from wives. Husbands were set to work and were prevented from returning home. How then did the Israelite population continue to grow? Because of the women who went into the fields to meet their husbands secretly for a romantic interlude under the apple tree. They returned to those trees months later to give birth in secrecy so that their children would remain safe. Choroset then becomes a symbol of courage and hope, which allows us to overcome seemingly overwhelming odds, even in a world filled with fear and despair. And finally, we have the eggs. And eggs are a symbol of life. And because they are eaten in houses of mourning, they also remind us that the joy of our freedom is diminished by the Egyptians' pain during the 10 plagues and their loss of life at the Sea of Reeds. It's common to include other things on our Seder plate that are relevant to things going on in our greater world. And so I wonder if you have anything special on your Seder plate this year. If you do, if you could write it in the comments, that would be awesome. Perhaps you chose to have some toilet paper or Purell or a mask in order to honor this plague that we are going through now. But there's a few things that are on my Seder plate. One is this sumo orange over here. And I know some of us, the cantor has an orange over there as well. There is a story that is often told that with Susanna Heschel, that they were asked if a woman belongs on a bima, and they said that a woman belongs on a bima as much as an orange belongs on a Seder plate. So guess what? The orange went on the Seder plate. The truth of the matter is it actually wasn't about women to begin with. It was about people in the LGBTQ community, that no matter what your sexual orientation is, no matter what gender you are part of the community. And so this orange is a symbol of inclusivity, which is so much of what we stand for at Temple Bethel. Another item that I always have on my Seder plate is fair trade chocolate. It can come in many different forms.
Can we eat it?
We can eat it later.
Yay!
Clearly my kids are excited about that one. I don't blame them.
We can eat it after
But
we go off.
unlike most chocolate today, fair trade chocolate is made without the labor of children slaves in the Ivory Coast. It is on our Seder plate to remind us that slavery still exists today and that we have the freedom and obligation to choose chocolate not made with child labor. Tonight we eat chocolate to remember all the trafficked and enslaved children in the Ivory Coast, sweetie, who toil in the cocoa fields, harvesting in the cocoa pods from which our favorite chocolates are made. For Jews, the descendants of slave laborers in Egypt and Auschwitz, such profit could never be sweet. We eat fair trade chocolate, the only chocolate that is free of child labor. We take the sweetness of this chocolate as a symbol of the resistance and possibility of liberation for all. And then finally, on my Seder plate this year, I have a lemon. And this lemon symbolizes, my husband is shaking his head right now. This lemon symbolizes the task of transforming that which that which is in our world, which leaves sour taste in our mouths. We have the power to make these lemons into lemonade. Look how resourceful we've become over just the past few weeks. As our story continues, Moses is called back from the desert of Midian, where he had found a wife and he had started a family and he had grown quite comfortable. But God calls to him from a burning bush and asks him to come back to Egypt in order to confront Pharaoh and say, "Let my people go." And as we know, there were many, many plagues along the path of trying to convince Egypt to let the people go. As we go through each of these plagues, perhaps you have some plague props at your tables. Feel free to use them. I know we have some at mine. But as we go through these plagues, we take our finger and place it into our wine or our grape juice and take just a small amount of sweetness out of our cups. And even though it might be tempting to lick our fingers after we are done, we try to instead dry them on a napkin, because we want to make sure that we are not celebrating sweetness with the suffering of other people. But the very first plague we have is the plague, thank you, is the plague of turning water to blood. So I invite you to continue with Dam.
Dam.
Tzfardea, frogs.
Tzfardea. Kinim.
Lice,
Arov.
of beasts.
Dever.
Cattle plague,
Shechin.
boils,
Barad.
hail,
Arbe.
locusts,
Choshech.
darkness,
Makat Bechorot.
death of the firstborn.
You want that one, Dad?
Yes.
Yeah. Chloe, do you want it? No, thanks.
Shelley Pogorelski includes in her Haggadah modern plagues. So each drop of wine we pour is hope and prayer that people will cast out the plagues that threaten everyone everywhere they are found, beginning in our own hearts, so that now in modern times we can easily relate to the plagues that we live with today. The plague of making war, the destruction of the earth, the crime that frightens us, the oppression of nations and peoples, the subjugation of science and learning, the teaching of hate and violence, the lack of justice in the world, neglect of human needs, the corruption of culture, and the erosion of freedoms. Finally, we know that after the 10th plague, at long last, Pharaoh said, "Yes, I will let your people go." And as we know, the Pharaoh would change his mind shortly thereafter and would chase after the people, but they were free. They were able to leave and they went forward to the sea. And when they came to the sea, there's a bunch of midrashim that speak about how the people stood at the waters, unsure of what to do as the Egyptian army approached from behind. And one of the midrashim speaks of the tribe saying, "No, I don't want to go into the water first. No, I don't want to go into the water first." And there being a young boy by the name of Nachshon who took his first steps in the water. And that act of faith, that act of resilience, that act of resistance is what enabled the waters to truly part so that we could march to freedom. We celebrate on this day with prayers of absolute gratitude. Perhaps there are some people in our community who are on right now who are Sephardic, and there is a tradition in Sephardic circles to actually take leeks, and when we sing Dayenu, to hit one another with those, not leeks, not leeks. Leeks would hurt.
Onions.
Scallions, that's what it is.
Scallions.
Uh-huh.
I remember that. That was so much fun.
Clearly my kids like that tradition. We don't have it this year, but
I wish I could.
really, guys, hold on.
Yes.
Ow. So we continue with the words of Dayenu, which are songs of gratitude to God for bringing us to a place of freedom, for giving us so much that we are grateful to have today.
אילו הוציאנו ממצרים, הוציאנו ממצרים, דיינו, 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 אילו נתן לנו את השבת, נתן לנו את השבת, דיינו, 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 אילו נתן לנו את התורה, נתן לנו את התורה, דיינו, 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 דיינו.
We could think of the myriad of ways in which we are so grateful this year.
בצאת ישראל ממצרים, בית יעקב מים לועז. בצאת ישראל ממצרים, בית יעקב מים לועז. הייתה יהודה לקודשו, ישראל ממשלותיו, הים רעב וינוס, הירדן יסוף לאחור. בצאת ישראל ממצרים, בית יעקב מים לועז.
We continue with our second cup of wine. So get that ready and lift your glasses.
Hey guys, it's speaking to back on.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן.
Wait, where'd my juice come from?
So remember how I said earlier that we have lots of hand washing? Well, we are getting very close to that time where we're going to be eating matzah and maror and charoset and all that good stuff. And in order to do any of that, we need to wash our hands. So I invite you to do that at your own tables as the cantor leads us in the prayer for hand washing.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על נטילת ידיים, על נטילת ידיים. Wash your hands.
And now that we're cleaning our hands and we're getting ready to eat some food, we come to our blessing over our matzah and take a different piece of matzah. We're not ready to eat the afikomen one yet.
I prefer the dad.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו al achilat matzah.
Can we do it like?
Delicious. Who's excited for 7 days or 8 days of eating it? That's a thumbs up,
Are we
right?
gonna have to eat 7 days of eating maror?
No, you don't have to eat maror for 7 days, but we are going to eat maror now. So we turn to our bitter herbs, and I invite everyone to get ready as we say this blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kijanu mitzvotav vetzivanu al achilat maror.
Eating maror on screen is kind of hard.
That is so good.
Now that we taste the bitterness, we prepare to also taste the sweetness. So we've eaten matzah, we've eaten maror. In the days of the temple, Hillel, the head of Sanhedrin, used to mine into one sandwich Pesach lamb, matzah, and maror. Hold on. He ate them all together. In order to observe the law, you shall eat it, the Pesach sacrifice, on matzah and maror. Eating the sandwich tonight reminds us of the temple sacrifice in Jerusalem as performed according to Hillel. And so I invite us to take the third bottom matzah and prepare a sandwich using matzah, maror, and charoset. There is no blessing over this, so I invite you to make it and then eat it.
Rabbi Hillel had the right idea.
Okay,
Too late for that.
so now we have finished our first
What is
our
this?
first part, our much longer part of our Seder, and we go to enjoying our meal. Right now, it is 7:15. It took exactly an hour. That's pretty awesome. So I invite everyone to enjoy your meals in your own homes. And at 8 o'clock, we are going to continue with a short version of just the continuation of our Seder. You're welcome to stay here. We're going to turn off our screens and just show this background as you enjoy your meal. And then we'll see you all, anyone who wants to stay, at 8 o'clock.
B'tei Avon, everyone.
B'tei Avon.
Thank you.
B'tei Avon. Eat well.
Am I in a Passover service?
Yeah, you're here.
Do I, first time I've done this, do I hear this Passover service or see it?
You will. Right now, we're on the meals section. So
Okay.
I believe we're going to rejoin around either 8 or 8:15. I think 8 o'clock. So you're in the right place. Just we're in a lull right now.
Hmm. Will I be able to see what's going on? I have a smartphone.
Yeah, you should. Do you see anything right now?
No,
How you just dialed in with the telephone number? Or did you use Zoom?
which telephone number? Is that what you said? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's working.
It's working. Okay, what do I do? Just wait, or did I miss the whole service, or?
I think the majority of it is over. Everyone is eating their meal, and then the after the meal part happens at 8 o'clock.
Oh, okay. And there'll be more on after 8?
That's right. That's right.
Hi, Elaine. This is Pam. Are you still on? Talk to you afterwards.
Hello? I'm going to call back after 8. I'm going to call back after 8.
A leaked video. A federal official ripping the big banks are moving too slowly now.
Can't get this
After
to
they
stop.
took billions in the 2008 bailout.
Okay. Hey, who's back? Nope, come here. Okay. We cleaned up. We cleaned up. Oh.
Hello, Bonnie.
Hi, who's there?
Eileen.
There you are. I can see you now.
Yes, we changed computers.
Ah, yeah.
How
Love
you
you.
doing?
I'm here. I just had my gefilte fish. And
Oh, I have to tell you, somebody told me about a tubular package of frozen gefilte fish that you open it up and you put it in boiling water for an hour and a half.
Mm.
Then you put it in the refrigerator to cool it off. It was wonderful. It was very good. Not the typical jarred Manischewitz.
Now, what I was taught that you doctored it up. That you take
It was cooked. Yeah.
the jar and you put it in a pot and you add carrots and let it cook.
Yes. Yes.
That's what my aunt did. She doctored it up.
That's what you did.
Yes, that's what I did. The recipe tells you to put onions and carrots in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the first time in
Barbara.
about 10 years that I did not make it from scratch, and I go to open my jar of gefilte
Wow.
and I had over 10 minutes trying to get it open. So somebody's sending me a message.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi there.
How you doing?
Okay, and you?
Good, good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
I-
doing our extended family Seder. We do it on the weekends, just
That's
to
what
make
we're doing. Yeah, yeah.
But this is a good practice for it. And tomorrow I'm going to go to my South Orange County Seder on Zoom.
Oh,
So
they're having one tomorrow?
my other synagogue, yes, in
That's-
South Orange.
Yeah.
Remember me. Remember, we're part of that synagogue also.
Eileen, Eileen,
Yes,
Temple Menorahs is tomorrow night.
okay.
Isn't that
It's
Are
Sandy.
you going?
your daughter is?
I don't think she's doing it. I don't think she's doing it. We'll do it with her on Saturday.
Can you?
Okay.
I liked your answer though, Eileen.
What? What's that?
I loved your response. She said, Temple Menorahs is tomorrow night, and you went, okay.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But this was wonderful.
Elon, I think I told you, I have two homes. Two homes, Temple Bethel and Temple
Hi,
Bethel.
Bonnie.
That's me.
Absolutely. I know that those are your two homes, my dear.
But this is my first home.
Same for me.
Okay, Elon, this is my friend Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
She lives in Las Vegas.
That's part of their.
Nice to
Hi.
meet you.
Nice to meet you. Who is this? Yvonne?
Elon, I'm the cantor.
I'm looking for you. Mine, I'm doing mine on the phone, so it's a little different. How do you spell your name?
I-L-A-N. L-A-N. Howie Shack, how's mom doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Gloria's doing okay, and I tried to get her to join the Seder by phone, but it was actually just too difficult.
I understand, but I'm happy that you were able to join us, and it's nice to see you.
I am
I saw you come
thrilled
on.
to
I was
be
so
here.
excited.
Thank you so much.
You bet, you bet. So good to see you.
We've lost you.
All right, it is 8 o'clock. Would you like to get started?
Oh, I would love to.
Let's get started.
Have your,
Hey everyone, we're gonna come back together to do our last half of the, well, it's actually less than half, but our last 2 cups of wine at the ending of our Seder. So hold on just 1 second.
I know. I had to make sure I had my cup of
Everyone,
tea.
just for starters.
Turn mute us.
Okay.
Want to say something?
Now Elijah told me that he brought the afikomen to a few different houses, but it turns out that he left some afikomen at my house and my kids found it. So we have some afikomen right here. Yeah. So since we have this beautiful afikomen right here, it is the end of our meal and we're able to reconnect. It got a little broken in the process. Elijah wasn't too careful, but it is the right matzah. So we put it all back together. And when we do that, we can eat this matzah that once was broken apart, but has come back together as our dessert. So if you have that in your home, I invite you to eat some of the afikomen now to signal the end of the meal. It's okay, Talia.
Want a piece of afikomen? There you go.
Okay. And we say the words at the end of a meal. This is a very shortened version of Birkat Hamazon. Baruch atah Adonai Hazan
Hazan et hakol.
And with that, we jump straight into our third cup of wine. So if you do not have a cup of wine in front of you or a cup of grape juice, either way is fine. Now is the time to do it.
I guess we're not quite ready yet, but we will be in a moment. Does everybody have their cup of wine or grape juice? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen l'chaim.
L'chaim. So this being the funny year that it is, Elijah Eliyahu Hanavi is the one guest who we do invite in tonight. So I offer you this prayer by Rabbi Naomi Levy. The only guest who we can safely invite into our homes tonight is Elijah. Elijah the prophet is the one who will herald in the Messiah. Our tradition offers us many visions of what Messianic days will look like. Some say it will be a time of supernatural events and miracles, but the Haftarah we recite just before Passover describes the great gift that Elijah will bring this way. And he will restore the hearts of parents to their children and the hearts of children to their parents. Restoring love is the greatest miracle of all. It is a messianic dream. Elijah comes to every bris and every baby naming to teach us the same lesson, that every single soul has a sacred role to play in the healing of hearts across this world. Let that healing begin tonight in our homes. Come, Elijah, bless our hearts with love and forgiveness. Come, Elijah, now more than ever, we are aware of how precious life is and how fragile. Redeem us, Elijah. Come, Elijah, enter this home, enter every home and drink from your honored cup. Redeem us, Elijah, free us from resentments, heal us from anger. Bring an end to all war and bloodshed. Let a new time of healing begin tonight. Welcome, Elijah. Pull up a chair. We need you tonight more than ever. Come now, Elijah. Heal our world. Amen.
Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishmi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Agiladi, Bimera ve'yameinu, Yavo Eleinu, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishmi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Agiladi.
We return again to Miriam and the cup of Miriam as we remember that Elijah was an important prophet, but Miriam also is a symbol of such hope and such strength.
Miriam Hanevia, Oz וזמרה בידה, מרים תרקוד איתנו, להגדיל זמרת עולם. מרים תרקוד איתנו, לתקן את העולם. במהרה בימינו, הטביענו אל מי הישוע,
fourth cup yet. So Passover is so much about coming from a place of gratitude for all that we have. And these words of Hodu Ladonai, praise to you, God. Let all who revere God's name now say, Kila Lam Chasto, sing praise.
Hodu Ladonai, ki tov, ki le'olam chasto, ki le'olam chasto. Yomar na, Israel, ki le'olam chasto, ki le'olam chasto. Let all who revere God's name now say, ki le'olam chasto. Give thanks to God, for God is good. Ki le'olam chasto. Yomru na, Beit Aaron. Ki le'olam chasto, ki le'olam chasto.
And now we turn really in close succession. We come to our fourth and final cup of wine. So let us raise our cups and say this blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen l'chaim.
One more prayer written by our very own Malin Dallinger. 3 feet of matzos await next year, at which time you'll all come here. A lamb shank, chorosis, matzo ball soup, and nature's egg, a new Jewish coop. The great liberation story will no longer be cloudy. We'll all make a deal, according to Howie, but not the deal that's now on TV, a far better deal. We will all be free. You see, Elijah missed the viral fuss. He will be with each one, with all of us, because this will be over. The burning population, not all consumed, as in the Bible's oration. A great new world, as Dvorak said, free from corona plague. We have not been misled. Each of us, then in our own home sweet home, content and happy, at peace. Shalom. And I know that as we're coming toward the end of this Seder, and as we get to join in a couple of good songs and have fun with them, we're all dreaming and hoping of next year when we'll all be able to celebrate with one another in person.
So we might be familiar with the traditional melody for Echad Mi Yodea, which says, Echad Mi Yodea, Echad Ani Yodea, Echad Eloheinu, 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 Sheba Shamayim Uva'aretz, etc., until we get to all the way to number 13, which in my family, we had a tradition of doing it all in one breath. So just to show you what it sounds like, and then we'll do it in English all together, because this is crazy. But when we get to 13, we have to do it. Shlosha asar mi yodeya, Shlosha asar ani yodeya. 13 מדיה, 12 שבטיה, 11 כוכביה, 10 דבריה, 9 יחד 8 ימי מילה, 7 ימי שבתא, 6 סדרי משנה, 5 חומצי תורה, 4 אמהות, 3 אבות, 2 לוחות הברית, 1 אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ.
I don't know, Cantor. I counted at least 3 breaths in there.
I know. I'm getting old. I'm out of practice. But we can do it also in English. And to do it in English, we kind of have to have a little beat going on. Here we go. Who knows one? I know one. One is our God. One is our God. One is our God in the heavens and the earth. Ba ba da ba da ba dum. Who knows two? I know two. Two are the tablets that Moses brought, and one is our God. One is our God. One is our God in the heavens and the earth. Ba ba da ba da ba da. Skip to 5. Who knows 5? I know 5. 5 are the books of the Torah, and 4 are the mothers, and 3 are the fathers. 2 are the tablets that Moses brought, and 1 is our God. 1 is our God. 1 is our God in the heavens and the earth. Ba ba da ba da ba da. Skip to 10. Who knows 10? I know 10. 10 are the commandments at Mount Sinai, and 9 are the months till the baby's birth. 8 are the days till the Brit Milah, and 7 are the days of the week. And 6 are the books of the Mishnah, and 5 are the books of the Torah, and 4 are the mothers, and 3 are the fathers. 2 are the tablets that Moses brought, and 1 is our God. 1 is our God. 1 is our God in the heavens and the earth. Ba ba da ba da ba da. 13. Who knows 13? I know 13. 13 are the attributes of God. And 12 are the tribes of Israel. And 11 are the stars in Joseph's dream. And 10 are the commandments at Mount Sinai. 9 are the months till the baby's birth. And 8 are the days of the Brit Milah. And 7 are the days of the week. And 6 are the books of the Mishnah, and 5 are the books of the Torah, and 4 are the mothers, and 3 are the fathers, and 2 are the tablets that Moses brought, and 1 is our God. 1 is our God. 1 is our God in the heavens and the earth. Ba ba da ba da ba dum bum bum. Oh my goodness.
That was fun.
It is fun. I had the dancing girls going on in my house. I don't know about the rest of you, but it was very exciting. Very exciting.
Your backup dancers.
My backup dancers. I love it.
So I don't know if you have more songs that you want to be sharing with us that we can join in now, but our promise and our excitement is that next year we will be in person as we have been so many years up until now.
Leshana haba panim al panim. Leshana haba panim al panim. Leshana ba, we will be face to face. Leshana ba, we will be face to face. Leshana haba panim al panim. Leshana haba, maybe in Yerushalayim. Chag Sameach, everyone. Chag Sameach.
Sameach, thank you all so much for joining us on this festive Passover. We've had so many people be a part of this today, both through YouTube and through Zoom, and each of you brought a little more light and a little more freedom and a little more camaraderie into our experience. So thank you so much for celebrating with each of us.
And Rabbi, I think it's really important to just remind people too that if you need help and want to do another Seder tomorrow night, then you can always go to YouTube and replay it, because that way you can use us 2 nights in a row. Exactly the same way. It is taped on YouTube. It's available on Temple Bethel San Pedro live stream on YouTube. And even though it won't be live tomorrow night, you can still go ahead and use it to guide your Seder as well.
Thank you, Cantor. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. It's a pleasure.
And
from here in Philadelphia, we thank you all.
Chag Sameach, Philadelphia.
Sameach.
Great to see you, Kales.
Thank you, Cantor.
Thank you.
Chag Sameach. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Sarah, thank you.
everyone.
Look at this.
What?
Bye, everybody. Chag Sameach.
Happy Passover.
Happy Passover.
Thank you.
Sameach Dollingers. It's good.
guys.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, look at the Cohn family.
Hi, Lon.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Stuck on the fourth egg.
Nice to meet you all.
I don't know who's celebrating in the Cohen household, but it's really cute.
Phenomenal.
Chag Sameach, everyone.
Good night.
I don't know who's celebrating in the Cohen household, but it's really cute.
Say bye.
Cone household has.
Happy birthday.
Tons of cones.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach,
Chag
Nathaniel.
Sameach.
Great to see you. Chag Sameach, everyone. Chag Sameach. Chag Sameach, Allen family.
Chag Sameach.
Hi, Sam.
If you're wondering how to get out of here, all you have to do is hit the leave meeting button. No, that's not that I'm kicking you out. So that I don't end up kicking you out accidentally.